Welcome back to the Metal Exchange. Justin and Chris here with you for another week. Episode 99. How are you, my friend?
The great one.
Yes. No Wayne Gretzky comparisons in this episode, but a lot of hardcore superstar, and I'm very, very excited to talk about them. We'll get into it, but how was your week? Did you hear anything interesting? Anything new come out that kind of catch your eye?
Not my eye, but my ear.
I like it.
So I saw that a couple new singles since last week came out. Nordic Union, which I was really happy to find out they are working on their third album, and it's going to be called Animalistic. And that means to me that our friend Ronnie Atkins is still working, and that means he's probably in pretty decent health. And so that's really good to hear. So this was a project. Was it Eric Martinson of Eclipse? Is that his name?
Yeah, I think so. Kind of like a tag team, dream team there. I'll tell you, Ronnie sounds great, and I love the fact that he's kind of, obviously recuperating from a lot of medical stuff right now, but he seems to be involved in doing a solo album and doing Nordic Union. Now we just need a new Pretty Maids album. Yeah,
and maybe even a tour if he's feeling up to it. I would like to be able to see them at least one more time. I know we came really close, but we'll see. Another Porcupine Tree track dropped called Rat's Return, and that album is coming out soon, isn't it? Next week,
I want to say next week. Yeah, it's. I can't believe it's here. For some reason, I feel like the lead up to this album has been exceptionally long, and I feel like we were talking about this in February, and for some reason I thought it was coming out at the end of the summer, but it is next week. That is something I will listen to the day it comes out. There's no question about that. I'm really curious to see how that goes.
Yeah, that I'm interested too, because I think this is going to be like the first Porcupine Tree album that comes out in real time that I'll listen to right away rather than kind of listen to it way after the fact.
Yeah, it's funny because it's been so long since they've done anything, and now that I've converted you into a prog rock fan, I can imagine you're actually going to enjoy this and the Pure Reason Revolution that came out earlier this year, etc. But the timing is right. I should have gotten you a ticket for this show. Actually, Milton and I are going to see them in September, so I look forward to that. It's a shame you won't be joining us.
Yeah. I think I'm busy that day, but also Soilwork released another single. I'm gonna try to pronounce this Nous sommes la guerre from their Overgiven Hitten upcoming album. I'm glad that they wanted to keep things easy for me to pronounce. So
and the lyrics are in English.
Yeah, but again, I'm looking forward to that a lot. I always look forward to. Yeah, I always look forward to.
Really interesting. It's got a lot of Night Flight Orchestra, and it sounds more like Night Flight than it does Soilwork, just in terms of the presentation. I don't know if the whole album is going to be like that. Obviously, the last single was not, but they are really pushing the boundaries in every direction. It seems.
Yeah, and just to keep it honest, on the power metal front, 2 new albums came out earlier today that I haven't gotten a chance to listen to, but I will be listening to very soon, and that is U.S. power metal band Seven Kingdoms released their Zenith album, and actually I've heard a number of songs from that because it was on they were on their last EP. They also do a cover of I Hate Myself for Loving You, which I'm sure Sabrina Cruz probably hit out of the park, and the other band, Civil War, released their new album Invaders. I'm curious about this one. The singles that I've heard so far have been good. I was so bummed when the last singer left. I'm blanking on his name, but he used to sing with Wuthering Heights, and he has such a distinct vocal style, and I thought he fit this kind of like post Sabaton kind of band so well, and but we'll see how this new singer does. I'm looking forward to hearing this, and that's on my radar as well. So that's it's all the stuff that I've come across my desk. Honestly, I've been spending most of the week, as I mentioned, listening to Hardcore Superstar and Power Quest. So,
which makes sense because we've got a lot of Power Quest on the way. But I'll say a couple of things about the Civil War albums. Those first three albums, for some reason, just didn't do it for me. And I think the singer you're thinking about is Niels Patrick Johansson, not to be confused with Niels Patrick Harris. But Niels Patrick Johansson is got one of those most like unique voices that you'll ever hear, and he fit the music well. I just didn't love the songs. That being said, I happen to really enjoy Kelly Sundown Carpenter, a U.S. singer, actually, ironically enough. He sang on a Beyond the Twilight album after Jorn Land had left the band, and he hit it out of the park. He's got a phenomenal voice for the kind of, this kind of project. I'm really curious to hear it. I've not heard the singles, but I will pick up the album just because I'd like to give it a shot. And who knows, maybe the songwriting took a step up. It had been about, I think, 6 years, if not more, since their last album. So it's called Invaders. I think you mentioned that earlier. I'm going to give this one a listen.
Yeah, the Dead Man's Glory single, which came out like 3 years ago. It's the second track on this album. I liked it. It's a different kind of vocal style, but it works. So I'm just curious how the rest of the album was. But I really enjoyed the last full measure, which was their last album. It had that really fun Tombstone song. So yeah, I guess we'll see. I thought that their last album was my favorite of their albums thus far. So
nice.
I'm hoping that kind of continues in that direction.
I want to mention just a pair of things that kind of stuck out to me this week. One which was really interesting, and the other one which I quite frankly just loved. A band out of, well, I got to be honest with you, I think it's out of Norway, but their name is Infidus. They came out with an album called Endless Greed at the end of April. I heard a song off this album, and it was really interesting. It was kind of like, how do I explain it? I guess it was like Alice in Chains meets Tool, but somehow more metalized or something like that. Kind of a weird mix. And I don't love it, but it was really interesting, and it kind of made me want to check out the rest of the album. So I wanted to put that out there. I'll try posting a song this week. And an album which I did hear and I listened to multiple times this week is the new All Things Fallen album. They're out of Sweden. They're a progressive metal band, very much in the Darkwater vein, and that's because the album was written by Darkwater's main man, Marcus Sigfridsson, who's one of the best, not only best producers and programmers, but just one of the best songwriters going in the genre today. This new album, it's called Shadow Way. I really liked it. I think that you'd like it as well because it's got that lush melodic prog sound, but it's not inaccessible. It's more straightforward and kind of catchy. I really think you're going to enjoy this one.
It's on the list. I will definitely be checking it out. I'm hopefully going to be have a chance to catch up on some of the stuff that's come out this year that I've missed. I think I'm doing a better job at keeping up than I did last year, but I still could be doing better, and that's usually more of a function of work being slow than anything else, because I tend to do most of my music listening while I'm working. But I'll get there. Got to have that list ready at the end of the year. So
we're diligently working towards it. I can't believe that 6 months is almost over. It's almost July 1st, and by the time we record our next episode, we'll be into the second half of the year.
Yeah, and the second half of 200 episodes.
Yeah,
which we will hopefully reach at some point.
I love it, but let's talk some Hardcore Superstar. I think I had mentioned...
Who do you got? Sandman, Sabu, Cactus Jack. I'll talk about whatever Hardcore Superstar you want.
I was always a Cactus Jack guy,
Raven.
and I think that's going back to 1992. So I'm gonna always lean Cactus, but this time we're gonna talk about the Swedish sleaze rockers. These guys have been around since 1997. I only started listening to them somewhere around 2010-ish, I want to say. I had seen their name on some message boards, and I had no idea what it was or what they sounded like. And also, I kind of thought the name was so stupid that I completely ignored them for a while. But then I gave it a listen, and I listened to one of the songs on this album, and I was like blown away. And I'm like, what on earth have I not been listening to for the last decade? As I said, around since 1997. I chose this particular album for a number of reasons. This one was their self-titled album. It came out in 2005. I am really curious to see what you think of these guys. Not so much the greatest hits songs, which obviously we'll get into. Some of them are on this disc, but some of the deeper cuts, which are
I'm actually curious as to which ones are which, or which ones are considered which. So you'll have to
I will definitely walk us both through that or what have you. But without kind of like spoiling it. The first song I ever heard was "We Don't Celebrate Sundays," which just happens to be the 5th track on this disc. And they did a video for it, and it's a staple in their live sets. And I just fell in love with the sound. It reminded me of like part Guns N' Roses, part Skid Row, and then part like melodic, power metal in a way. Not that it sounded like power metal, but just that melodic, catchy chorus type of thing that a lot of the power metal bands were doing when we were growing up. And it just, I was shocked. I fell in love with their sound. And as I started listening to the albums, it became quite interesting for me because I don't think any of their albums are perfect. I don't think any of their albums are really near perfect. But every album has a couple of songs that are just so good that if you just threw them together, you'd have like the perfect best of, which is interesting because I'm the kind of guy that just listens to albums straight through. And I've listened to this album straight through a lot more than any of their others, to be honest. I think it's their most complete album, but I think you'll be surprised when I give it a rating at the end because it's like the haves and the have-nots, and we'll get to it because some songs certainly fall flat for me, and I'm wondering if you had the same experience.
I guess. Yeah, I think I'm going to be right there with you. In all honesty.
Okay, I'm curious to see if the songs that really jump out for me are the same ones that jump out for you. Because if they're not, then I think it's really a testament to the songwriting and maybe just our personal tastes. But to go back a little bit, the band was started by the guitar player and their bass player, Joachim Berg on vocals, Martin Sandvik on bass. They both appear on this album. The drummer, Magnus Andreasen, he comes to the band about 2 years later. He's on this album as well. The only member on this disc who was not is not in the band anymore is a guy by the name of Thomas Silver. He does the guitar work and he does an admirable job, but he left the band a couple of years after this album came out, November 2nd, 2005. So without further ado, let's get into it because it's funny. They've been on, I think they're huge in Sweden, and I know that they've placed on the album charts over there, and ultimately they would find their way to Nuclear Blast and a big label, but they're kind of underground, and not everyone talks about these guys, and I'm a little surprised because with bands like Heat and bands like Crazy Licks and like all those bands that are kind of blowing up, these guys are kind of getting left in the dust a little bit. They've released a lot of new albums since then, but I don't know if any of them have caught on quite like this one did back, almost 17 years ago now.
So the thing that I found incredibly interesting, and it kind of caused me to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole, is we use the encyclopedia Metallum, whatever you want to call it, metalarchives.org, I believe. Mm-hmm. For a lot of research and information and stuff. They do not have bands like this on. Yes. Like, you can't find Hardcore Superstar, you can't find Crash Diet. It's like this kind of almost glam kind of vibe doesn't get included the same way that like Amaranth I think removed also because they're considered a core band. It's interesting that like something like this, like I couldn't use the Metal Archives as like a resource, which was surprising. Like I listened to this and I'm like, it's kind of not super far off from like a Steel Panther, although I'm not sure if Steel Panther's on Metal Archives either. But I just think that's weird that like that style for whatever reason gets precluded when there's so many different subsections of metal that I definitely feel like this falls in that category.
Considering how many different like tentacles the octopus has, why wouldn't this be included? And I noticed the same thing, just to sometimes have something at a glance. I want to be able to look at, when a certain album came out or when a band member, changed or what have you. That is not a resource for this album or this genre really. And it's kind of surprising because when I listen to a band, like we talk about Crash Diet, I was a big fan of the new album. We talked about it briefly last week. Why wouldn't they be in there? Like, I mean, is it hard rock? No question. Is it quote unquote heavy metal? I don't know. Is it any more metal than like Dream Theater? I mean, like, you know, when I listen to Another Day, I don't really have a metal vibe. But when I listen to some of the songs on this album, when I listen to Wild Boys, it's got a really heavy guitar riff, and I'm surprised that like it doesn't make the cut, or for whatever reason the editors over there choose not to have that branch on there.
Yeah, this is metal to me. I mean, I think
No doubt.
I think that this is like, to me, this is if the 80s hair metal movement kept moving through the 90s and into 2000s,
yes.
This is where it would have ended up. This is what the forerunners of the Motley Crues and the Poisons of the world, I think, would have ended up. It's got a little bit more, I think, of a power metal kind of vibe to it, because I think it's a little bit more energetic. But there's a number of bands I'm reminded of, and I'll kind of go into it as we talk about each song, because I feel like a lot of their songs do have kind of a distinct kind of flavor to them. I mean, there's songs that sound like one band, and then songs that sound like a completely different band. So
I agree with you, and I think that I think we're going to have a lot of the same thoughts on here, because much like that first Steel Panther album we talked about, I think there's a lot of heavy influences on some of these tracks. I'm curious to see if we agree completely or if we heard the same things, but like they definitely borrowed heavily, especially on some of these tracks. But like, I love it. And to me, you mentioned obviously Motley Crue, and I think that's a good apt comparison. I'll take it one step further. If Guns N' Roses and Skid Row were the next step after Motley Crue, right? Motley Crue in the early and mid 80s, Skid Row and Guns N' Roses in the late 80s, early 90s. Fast forward 15 years, you get to these guys. That to me is the progression.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know. We talk a lot about how, you know, metal kept going in other countries after the 80s. Like, it kind of died in the US, but in other countries, it was really power metal and prog metal that was kind of going. Like, this kind of style, the US glam style, pretty much died with the metal scene in this country, and bands like Dream Theater and Helloween, you know, they continued to have success in Europe and Japan. Yeah, so it's cool to hear something like this that's a modern take on that old kind of 80s, you know, hair metal, glam metal, whatever you want to call it, LA vibe. I find that it kind of takes some of that cheesiness out of it. Like, it's, I mean, you've probably seen more of their music videos than me, so I don't know if they're dressed like Motley Crue in 1986, but like, I don't know, like the music feels a little bit more serious and a little less like gimmicky, I guess.
Yeah. Although we're gonna get into the lyrics in one or two of these songs, which I happen to love, but it's not as cheesy. It's just a little cliche, I guess. But I think it works for them for what they're doing. In terms of the dress, it really is like you know, it's more of a hard rock thing. I don't know if it's a heavy metal thing, but like, they have a unique look. I'll say that, and they're still going strong today. I'll talk a little bit about when I saw them, the one time I saw them live back in 2016. I can't believe it was 6 years ago. It feels like yesterday, but alas, here we are. Let's kind of just dive into it at this point. This it's not a long album. It's under 50 minutes, but did you find that it moved for you? Because for me, I felt like it was a very quick listen. Maybe it's because it's not the hardest stuff to digest, but I feel like you're in a song, you move on to the next one, and then before you know it, the album's over.
Yeah, I would agree. I found that the thing that was surprising to me is that I found that it really wasn't like, I didn't find anything all that remarkable the first couple of times I listened to it. I did know We Don't Celebrate Sundays. That was the one song I knew going into this. It was on like my fourth and fifth listens where I really started to notice tracks that stood out. I was just surprised. I thought this was going to be like I'd listen to it like once or twice and I'd be like hooked in. And it took longer. It was almost like how I am with Prague, where I really need to like spend more time with it.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it did end up. Some of the songs really did end up resonating with me. It just took a little longer than I thought. I just figured something that's kind of this straightforward would be kind of quick to digest, but I think that it might. I think it just maybe sounded kind of all similar the first listen through, and the more I listened to it, the more things started to kind of have each track had its own flavor that I was able to kind of pick up on.
I actually have another explanation for it, and I'm curious to see if this is what you found. For me, this album's almost like a hamburger. I don't particularly love the beginning or the end. I think the best part of this album is really the middle, the meaty portion in the middle of this album. And that's where there's like 4 or 5 really fantastic tracks. And not that the beginning or end is particularly bad. It's just not memorable for me vis-a-vis the rest of the album. And it's kind of a slow starter. It takes a little while to get there. And then when you get there, it takes you on a nice ride. And then it kind of fizzles out a little bit at the end. So I don't know if you had that experience as well, but we'll find out. The album kind of kicks off with this song called Kick on the Upper Class. I still don't exactly know what it means. It's much like the rest of the album, or I should say many of the songs on the album. It's kind of a mid-pace song. And while I don't think the singer is particularly the best, I do think Jock is perfect for their sound, if that makes sense. Nobody's going to confuse him for Michael Kiske or Jeff Tate, but he's really good at this sleazy sound that they're going for. And even though the chorus is like extremely silly, I loved how they used keyboards on here to layer the sound. It's one of the few tracks that they do that. And it just reminds me a lot of that like Appetite for Destruction era Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, I liked it as a way to kind of kick off the album. Kind of just gets the ball rolling. I think this was one of the songs that stuck out to me more than others. It wasn't my favorite track, but I think it kind of had a flavor to it that I think after a few listens to it, I really kind of thought was distinct. Whereas like the second track, Bag on Your Head, like all I hear is Motley Crue's Kickstart Your Heart.
I am so happy you said that for multiple things. I'm going to unpack all this. Number one, I don't like this tune, which is interesting because how many times I don't think I've ever said on this podcast, oh, it's the second track, I don't like it. I don't like this track. I think it's got that anthemic rock feel, but something falls flat to me. Maybe it's like the piped in, hey vocals. I don't like it. It's like a touch faster and a touch heavier, but it's really just Motley Crue. Like you said it, the chorus is repetitive and it's just pedestrian compared to other things on this disc. Not a fan.
The opening riff is just total Kickstart Your Heart, but the rest of the song just isn't as catchy as the Motley Crue song. It's just the chorus isn't as good. Like that song is a song that really rocks like start to finish. And this one, You're right, it does. I agree with you. I thought that it was kind of boring. Like I don't know. Boring's probably not the right word for it because it's a fast paced, like quick moving, like kind of toe tapping, head banging kind of song. It's just not that. I don't know. It's just not that memorable to me. Like because honestly, that riff and then it comes back in like later on it's just all you can think of is kickstart my heart.
I the Motley Crue vibe was strong with this one. And then you get into the third track and you expect it to kind of really pick up. And I think it takes a step in the right direction, but I don't love this one either. It's really just a straight up rocker. And I definitely hear, and again, I know it's revisionist history, but I hear Steel Panther here, as many of the tracks on this. It's just not as good as the stuff that would come later. The bridge completely takes me out of it. I like the guitar solo, but I just don't have much else to say about this song. For me, the track starts to really pick up with the next track.
Yeah, this song kind of reminds me of Steel Panther did the opening theme song for a TV show on MTV. I think it was with the show with Rob Dyrdek after he finished Robin Big, Ridiculousness, maybe. It was one of those shows or whatever, and this song just kind of reminds me of a like a poor man's version of that theme song. So I definitely there is, I think the vocals kind of remind me a bit of Michael Starr. But and the song just is constructed in a Steel Panther-ish kind of way. But yeah, I agree. Again, I agree with you. It's not quite as good as what like Steel Panther would do. You know, they would do this song better.
And exactly. And like we're a quarter of the way through the album. I kind of enjoyed the opening track for what it is, but like had I heard this first, I don't know if I would have ever even gotten to the songs that I am about to gush over. It's interesting. We talk about placement. This disc is just not constructed like the conventional album with like a really strong beginning and potentially strong end. We'll get to the good stuff because track 4 is a big step in the right direction. Not my favorite track. I don't even know if I put it in the top half, but it's close. It's called She's Off Beat. It's a really slow starter, but it picks up nicely. The chorus is repetitive, as many of their choruses are, but I like this one. It's catchy, it's quirky, I like it, and it's got this really like this groovy melody throughout, which I think is kind of nice. And then all of a sudden, about 2/3 of the way through the song, it picks up speed like a runaway train, and the singer Jack almost like raps the verse, which I thought was really, really cool. This is a song that I like, and by far the best of the first 4.
This song, of all things, reminded me of like Avenged Sevenfold, but then also there were times where the vocals reminded me of Scott Weiland. Not like Stone Temple Pilots Scott Weiland, but like Velvet. Was it Velvet Revolver? That like at certain points, and then there's other times where he sounds like M Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold, and this song kind of feels almost like an Avenged Sevenfold song in a lot of ways. But I agree with you. I think this and the opening track are definitely the highlights of the first third or first 4 songs of this album. It's definitely another fast-paced rocker, but yeah, this was definitely a step in the right direction after 2 kind of almost like lackluster impressions of other bands that
no doubt. Now strap in. We Don't Celebrate Sundays. I played this shit out of this song, and the funny thing is, when I first heard that, and I kind of just did the deep dive into this band, I played these songs like incessantly at the gym. I thought it was like the best music to work out to. So I just kind of made my own best of playlist, and they came out with a best of album at some point, and I would just play this stuff on repeat. Ironically, it was this and Remedy Lane that I used to just play on repeat at the gym, which you want to talk about an album that doesn't suit well at the gym. Remedy Lane is that album, but nonetheless, I used to just play them on repeat or whatever. But this song is really one of the ones that did it for me.
Hey, when you're at the gym, you need something to pick you up, and then you need something to bring you back down at the end.
And both of them do it perfectly. It's so catchy and the perfect intro. And I got to be honest, I haven't talked about this. Of all their albums, I think this is actually the one that's mixed the best because it retains that sleazy feel, but without sounding muddy and compressed. And this song to me is just one big party. I love it. The drum intro with that main guitar riff on top is perfect. The verses, the chorus, it's like the Lex Luger of songs. It's just like the total package. I love it. And to be honest with you, like this one should be played out. And I've talked about other songs that kind of just don't do it for me anymore. And even like an I Want Out, where I've heard it 10,000 times, I just don't want to hear it anymore. This one, cue it up again. I'm ready to listen.
Lex Luger was not a hardcore superstar.
No, but he was the total package.
Unless you count a steel plate in your forearm as like as like something you'd use in a garbage hardcore match. But I think I got a little off the track there. I like this song going into it. I continue to like this song. It's like very sports anthem-y. Like I could definitely see them playing. This would make a great song for like a hockey team to skate out onto the ice to. It'd probably make a good goal song too. It's just a good, like a good old fashioned pump you up, like yell out the chorus, kind of song. It's good. The guitar solo is awesome. Like this is what I would hope if like the glam movement went into the 90s and the 2000s, what like I would hope other bands would try to emulate is this kind of style, because this is it's just fun and it's catchy and it's enjoyable, and I'm pretty sure I actually used this song on a Power Hour. I think that's why I'm so familiar with it.
Nice,
because I really don't know a ton of songs by this band, but this is probably the one I know the best.
The way I would describe it is this: if this song doesn't do it for you, this band will never do it for you. I think that's kind of like the way it goes. And it's not my song of the week, because there's actually something on here that I have started to appreciate even more and has literally been stuck in my head all week. But I'll give you a spoiler. It's not Hateful. This poor song is the worst placed song on the album, because after this, there's a bunch of gems for me. This song is in a bad spot. It's slower paced. It's not a ballad, but it's got elements of like this power ballad to it. I think the verses are kind of mundane. This is a filler track, and I feel like they didn't want to have another gem in between this and Wild Boys, which is one of their bigger hits and a song that they play live even to this day. I don't envy the placement of this track. It's kind of a filler tune.
I think I like this song better than you do.
Interesting.
Yeah, I just think I think that it kind of, unlike some of the other songs that were unremarkable, it doesn't sound like it was like lifted from another band, in my opinion.
That's also true.
I think it has its own kind of vibe. It's a little bit more chill. But I don't know. I think it's kind of catchy. This is one of the ones that kind of grew on me the more I listened to it. So like where you say like the meat of this album, the middle of the album is strong. Like I think I agree with you even more than you do, because
it sounds like it, because this is the one exception to my statement earlier. Again, not that it's bad, it just doesn't resonate as much as some of the others, but it sounds like you really liked it, and I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, I don't know if it's as good as We Don't Celebrate Sundays, but I didn't feel like the album took a nosedive after like a really strong song. I think it was, like you said, like I think it was just like kind of a small dip, but more so because the song was a little less energetic than the song before or after it.
I think that makes sense, but if you like this track, tell me what your thoughts on Wild Boys are, because I've got some thoughts.
All I kept thinking of was like, if this was the TV show Wild Boys on the air yet, and if so, was this the theme song for it? Because this would have been perfect. Speaking of shows on MTV, maybe I need to look that up, because like that. I mean, this you
feel like there's a lost opportunity in there somewhere.
Yeah, I might just dub this song over the original intro and rewatch it just to see what it would look like. I might have to look that up, but yeah, this is another really catchy song that I also think has its own kind of vibe to it. It doesn't feel like it's like they're borrowing from anybody.
Yeah.
And again, this is another song that I feel has kind of a rock, like sports anthem kind of vibe to it. But yeah, I like this one as well. So I feel like these three songs in a row right now are like really kind of setting a new tone of midway through the album.
This is a gem for me. The lyrics are patently absurd, but they're hysterical. And I think that if you haven't seen them or you've never heard the band, you could do worse than listening to this song. It's catchy, it's melodic, it's got that party rock feel. The bridge here, unlike the bridge I mentioned earlier, actually really sets the song apart, and it's kind of a nice lead-in to the final leg of the song, if you will. This is the one that like your toe is tapping along to, and you just kind of want to raise your hand and what's interesting is the band hasn't really written a song like this in a long time, and this is the kind of sound that I love to hear from them. When I saw them, all of a sudden, I'll get into it now because I think it's worth mentioning. It's kind of a nice segue. When I saw them, they were not doing like a run of shows. I think they had done one show in LA, and before they were going back to Europe They did kind of like a one-off here in New York, and they played at the Gramercy Theater back in February of 2016. And I was so excited that I dragged my sister and her boyfriend to the show just because I wanted someone to go with, and nobody knew who these people were. And it was just so much fun. They're not like, they don't take themselves too seriously. They played a little bit from a bunch of albums, but they did play this song, Wild Boys, and they played We Don't Celebrate Sundays, and I just had so much fun at the show. I've been trying to get them to Atlanta for years, but the problem is they've been releasing so many kind of mediocre to subpar discs that like the timing I don't think is particularly right, and I don't think they ever had the following that some other bands have. I think that, quite frankly, Crash Diet would be a better fit at this point, but really fun live band, and I cannot say enough. Like, if you kind of like the albums, go see them live. You will have a good time, I promise you.
Yeah, I can't imagine this being anything but just a lot of fun. I think even if they just came to Prog Power with like little to no fanfare, people would just go out of curiosity and end up just having a really good time. And
I cannot stress that enough.
I just looked it up, and the Wild Boys TV show came out 2 years before this album. So maybe this song was a tribute to the Wild Boys TV show, which was a kind of an offshoot of a couple of the guys from Jackass, where they would go around the world and like just it was actually, like, of all things, it was kind of like an educational show, because you would learn about different indigenous people and different like animals, and it was really a cool show. It starred Jeff Tremaine, Chris Pontius, and Steve-O. The theme song was actually done by Turbo Negro, and the song was Age of Pomparius. So shout out to Knops. I always think of Knops when I hear of Turbo Negro because of a poster he had in his apartment, and Turbo Negro was the band that was opening for, I don't even remember who the main band was. Sorry, Knops, you'll have to correct me when you listen to this. But yeah, that another sidebar there. Yeah, it's Hardcore Superstar.
Now, for bang for the buck, my two favorite tracks are actually coming up right now. My Good Reputation is a perfect song. I love it. And it's funny. I love the lyrical theme, which is basically about this guy who's talking to another girl, and his girlfriend kind of outs him. I think it's absolutely hysterical. Probably because I'm not that guy, but like, it's just, the whole thing about that is there's something so endearing about this track. I love it. When I first heard this song, this was in the big three with Wild Boys and We Don't Celebrate Sundays. It's on their best of. I knew that it was held in high regard by the band and whatnot. But this song just gets better for me. I think that it's very Guns N' Roses in spots. And could quite frankly, this close to being Song of the Week, but I'm gonna hold off and give it to something else. And I'll just say one other thing about it. There's a noticeable amount of backing vocals that kind of layer the vocals that are at the forefront of this song, and it really, really adds another element to it that I love.
I got a little bit of a kind of a mid-tempo Motley Crue kind of vibe also from this, but yeah, catchy. I don't think I liked it as much as you did, but still thought it was a pretty good song. And again, it kind of fits that like that rock anthem or sports anthem kind of vibe. But yeah, I do agree with you. The lyrical content is quite funny, and it almost kind of has a like a clean Steel Panther kind of
totally
thing going on.
I couldn't agree more. I love it. But my song of the week is Cry Your Eyes Out. This song I almost forgot about this song, but this is the hidden gem on the album. It's this groovy little number where the drums for the first time just kind of take the forefront and really stand out for me. And then after that intro with this crazy little, drum jam, it goes right into classic Hardcore Superstar. This is up there with the big three, and nobody talks about this track. This is going to be my song of the week. I love it.
Don't you wanna see me anymore? When I left to stalk you, I pushed my ego to fall. No confusion, that's what I want. I think I
Good choice. Yeah, I like this. I do like this better than My Good Reputation. I think it's one of the better songs overall on the album. I think you're going to be surprised when I tell you what my song of the week is.
I'm shocked because I'll be honest. I'm about to shit on the last 3 songs, so I don't know where this is going. What are your thoughts on Simple Man?
It's simple. It's a pretty simple man. I mean, I can't say that there were any songs on this album that I just outright disliked.
No, it's just is just like a very vanilla track. Nothing really stands out about it.
There's just like this handful of songs that are just kind of average, you know? This one, again, I think I liked a little bit more than you did. Not by a lot, but I thought it was a little bit above average. Not very above average, but yeah, I mean, it's just kind of there. It's I don't really know. I don't know that it particularly reminds me of any other band. I don't know. It's pretty good. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's just kind of there.
All right. Well, what I can say with absolute certainty is there is a Blood on Me is a.
Oh, can I say it?
Go ahead.
This is an AC/DC song.
Dude, let me explain something to you. I get in my car. I'm picking up my wife. I have this song on. When she gets into the car, she's like, is this AC/DC? Even she picked up on it, right? Like, this song, the influence is, the chorus is AC/DC. The guitar solo is AC/DC. The lyrics are AC/DC. It is... I mean, this is the best AC/DC song that they never wrote. I don't love it, but it happens to be an AC/DC clone to a T.
Yeah, the like layered vocals and the chorus and stuff. It's right out of the AC/DC handbook. And I mean, you know, what better band to steal a song from? But yeah, I mean, the first time I heard it, I was like, oh man, how did I go from you know, what was I saying before? Oh my God, major brain fart there. How did I go from Motley Crue to AC/DC on the same album with Avenged Sevenfold in between? Like, there's
nuts, right?
I mean,
you can't make it up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just like I feel about pretty much every middle of the road AC/DC song, this song is just kind of, it's there. It's kind
Go
of
check out our discussion about Back in Black in the archives. You'll hear our thoughts on AC/DC in a lot greater detail.
Yeah. Well, here we go. My song of the week, Standing on the Verge.
Wow. Okay. Now, again, I want to point out the spelling here. STANDIN apostrophe. You know my thoughts. You're already getting into merit.
Don't pronounce the G. The G is silent.
So I'll be honest. Of the last 3, this is by far the best. I still think it pales in comparison to some of those songs in the middle. Let me just tell you my thoughts, and then I want to hear yours.
Sure.
Cool guitar intro. Kind of starts like a Tesla ballad at the start of this thing. I like this. It's beautiful in like a sleazy way. It's interesting because it just kind of like wets your whistle and kind of leaves you wanting more, but then the album ends. So it's like, I don't know. It's a good song. I just want a little bit more. And I noticed something for the first time in my life this week, having listened to this album for, you know, the millionth time. The keyboards at the end are basically the same keyboards at the beginning of the album. And it's like the whole thing comes full circle. And I never realized that before.
Maybe their whole idea was like they left you wanting more in hopes that you would just start the album over again.
Exactly. So I like the choice. Why is this the song of the week?
It doesn't sound like anything else on the album. It's like it almost has a little bit of a kind of like a mid-tempo Aerosmith kind of vibe to it. I like that it's not like, I like that it's not trying to be another Motley Crue or AC/DC or like this just kind of chugging along, fast paced, rock song. It's, I guess it's kind of a rock ballad. The beginning for sure, it picks up a little bit into more of like a mid tempo song, but I just thought that more than anything, it just stood out. Like it was just, I felt like it really felt different than anything else on the album in a good way. And I just, by the time I was familiar with the whole album, it kind of represented to me like when the album was finished. And I thought that like it was a kind of a nice way to tie a bow on this album that's mostly very adrenaline and energy filled. And it's just kind of like, it kind of closes out in this like very, almost like late 70s, early 80s kind of mid-tempo rock ballad. I don't know. I definitely got like an Aerosmith vibe from the song for whatever reason. But, and then just, I love his vocals. I think they stand out more because the instrumentation isn't as wild.
Yeah.
So you can really kind of hear him and just that raspiness. It's just such a cool sounding voice. Like no one's ever going to confuse him for like you said, like Kisk or Tate, but, you wouldn't want a singer like that in a band like this anyway. Like this is the kind of, this is the kind of style that perfectly fits. So, I'm sure you probably didn't think this would be my song of the week, but, I wouldn't have thought so either the first couple of times I listened to it. But in all honesty, nothing really stood out to me as a song of the week until I really started to digest the album after 4 or 5 times. And then it felt, by the 4th or 5th listen, I felt pretty confident in that this was my favorite song on the album and the one that really stood out the most.
I like it. I'll ask you first, what is your rating for this album? And was it a clear number or did it kind of like move a little bit during the week?
I mean, it probably like when I first listened to it, it probably was like a 5 or a 5.5, and it grew slightly each time I listened to it. I'd probably give it I'm stuck between like a 6.75 and a solid 7. I think I'm gonna go with 6.75 just because I feel like I've rated better albums with a 7. So
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. Nothing about it was bad, but I also don't think that there was any really one song that really blew my socks off, to be honest with you.
And so I get it. And just hear me out. Like I have I draw the same conclusion, but a little bit differently. For me, like a third of this album is a 10, like literally a 10 for me for about a third of the album. And then like 2/3 of the album is like a 6. So it's like, it's weird because I love some of it. And the rest of it, I could not listen to and I would be perfectly okay with it. Not that it's bad. It's just not great. And that's why I go back to what I led with, which is I can make you a best of Hardcore Superstar. And I bet you if you listen to tracks 1 through 15 or 1 through 20, you'd be like, this band is phenomenal. And then I could literally just save your time from listening to the other 100 songs, which is crazy, but that's how I feel about this band. It's like a love-hate thing. For me, it's a 7.5, just because of the lack of balance and the lack of distinction between some of the tracks but at the top end, it's so good that it just brings up the entire album, because if it wasn't for those 4 tracks, it would probably be a 6. Like, I got to be honest with you. It's just interesting how 4 tracks or a third of this album can just bring the entire thing up.
Well, I'm going to ask that you put together this Hardcore Superstars Greatest Hits Justin version, and maybe add it to our Spotify playlist. Because
You'd be happy to.
Yeah, because I'd like to kind of. I'll be honest with you. Like, I don't know that I want to sit through all of these albums and try to sift through and figure out what the best songs are. I trust that you can just tell me and that you're right.
I will make, I appreciate the faith, blind as it might be. I will make a 75-minute best of so that it would fit on a CD. We'll post it to the page and we can blast it out. And I'll save everybody the time because they have a massive discography. But the irony is I don't even know if I would hit every album on the best of. I'd probably just leave it to the best tracks that are worth listening to. And then you can kind of condense everything into one solid listen, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I do see that they have an album that came out this year, so I've added that to my to-do list of albums to listen to this year.
It's not good. I'm going to be honest. I've listened to it. There's one or two tracks that are pretty good, but like it's not that good. And
well, then I'll be going into it with the minimalist of expectations.
Number 8 album of the year, Hardcore Superstar, because it smashed your expectations. I can say it now. No, I think there's a reason why the Crash Diet is so high for me, and that album will not be on my top 50 list. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, well now I want to listen to it out of morbid curiosity,
or out of spite, whatever the case may be. Sure. Well, there you have it. I guess Hardcore Superstar, 2005, their self-titled release. I'm glad we got to do it. They've been on my list since day one, so it was selfishly a great discussion. I'm glad we had it. A couple of news points, which I think are worth mentioning. Ozzy Osbourne had some surgery to, I guess, realign and change some things around in his neck and his back. He's out of the hospital. He's doing well. Obviously, a legend what can I say about Ozzy? Obviously, he's just an absolute legend. Glad he is doing well and he's out of the hospital. And Megadeth has announced that their new single is arriving next week, which will be fantastic. It comes from their album, which is due out in September, called "The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead." You got Dave Mustaine, you got Kiko Loureiro on guitars, and you got me listening to it because how can I not?
I'm looking forward to it too. I always look forward to whenever Megadeth has new material. So, yeah, definitely gonna check that out.
So, with that, I've spent the bulk of this week listening to, digesting, and preparing to try to keep up with you on a Power Quest conversation. So you can imagine how much time I've spent with this, because I feel like I've got like 25,000 listens to try to catch up to, and I've got 1 week to do it. But we've got some surprises in store. I think it's going to be a lot of fun next week and over the next couple of weeks. And then we'll be back with our next episode, and I look forward to obviously hearing what you have to say, but we have a request album that is coming up, and we'll obviously have that out on July 4th. So before we get to your album, we'll do this special request for July 4th, and then we'll come back on July 11th with actually, I guess it would be my turn because Power Quest was yours, but a lot of exciting things coming up in the coming weeks and coming months, but especially with this 100th episode that we are going to definitely spend a lot of time on and have some interesting conversations for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much looking forward to this. I've listened to almost all of their songs once through so far this week. I'll probably do it again next week. I don't really need to. I'll be honest with you. I know these songs are just like a part of my soul. So
at this point, yeah.
Yeah. So honestly, I'm more excited to kind of hear what you have to say, and we definitely have a couple interviews lined up, so I'm really interested to hear what our interview subjects have to say. I'm least excited about hearing what I have to say because I've already said it in my own brain millions of times, so it's nothing new for me. And this is, I've made it very clear. This band is I hold very close to my heart, both musically and personally. So there's a reason why I sat on this for so long.
No question. And I will give you my honest opinion, but I'll just give you a little taste at this point. And I'm not really going to say much that you probably don't already know, but my thoughts going in, some of them were confirmed. Others have actually changed completely as I've listened to this stuff over and over again this week. I have a little bit of a different take on some of this stuff, at least going into it, than I thought I was. Or if you would have asked me to just do it blind and give like a recitation of some of this stuff, it's definitely different. But I'll highlight that when we chat again. And we are inching closer to 100, so I look forward to that. But like I said, if you like what you hear, leave us a positive review. It obviously helps other people find the show. Hit us up on social media. Keep the requests coming, and we will catch up with you with the big episode 100 next week.
I am so excited.
What else can be said, right? Enjoy the week, and I will talk to you soon, bud.
All right. Take care. Crunch those numbers.